Welcome everyone once again to Bullying You into Voting. Last episode we talked about what inspires people to vote. Today we'll talk about why voting is important in and of itself. We are joined today for the final time by your host, Zarina Tabera, and myself, your co-host, Fuzail Shazad.
To begin, Fuzail, do you think that voting is important to you?
Yes, I definitely do. Although there are differing opinions, I feel that voting is one of the most basic ways for citizens to have a say in how they are represented in the system that governs them.
But doesn't the thought of how irrelevant a single vote is cross your mind? I still think that every vote matters, but what would you say to the people who believe that their singular vote isn't important?
To answer that question, I would reference moments in history where elections were extremely close. Take, for example, the 2000 presidential election between Al Gore and George W. Bush. The winner of the election rested solely on who was able to win Florida. According to National Geographic, Bush won Florida by about 0.009% of the votes cast. This came out to exactly 537 votes. This meant that if there had been nearly 600 more Al Gore votes, the presidential election would have been won by Al Gore.
Yeah, you're definitely right there. And let's not forget about electoral votes. Contrary to popular belief, if an individual vote has a lot of other votes joining it, then they can win over entire states and tri state areas. Something similar happened in the 2016 presidential election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. While Hillary was able to win popular votes across the nation, Trump and his brand were able to spread in denser areas like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. This allowed him to win through electoral votes.
The concept of a single vote not being significant has caused a large percentage of registered voters not to vote. A study conducted by Portland State University showed how less than 15% of registered voters were actually voting in elections at the state level.
Going back to old elections, there have been many elections at the state level that have hinged on no more than a few votes. And these outcomes can affect a much more immediate community.
Let's not forget the example of the election of the 94th District of Virginia House of Delegates. According to castleton.edu, this election ended in a tie with 11,608 votes cast. To finally decide the winner, a name was picked out of the hat. Moreover, such as these also have a tendency to affect higher government platforms, such as which party takes the House of Delegates.
Well, it goes without saying that the act of voting itself is no small feat. Even if the majority of elections are not decided by close elections, voting is a right that has not come easily for the vast majority of people who can vote in this day and age. At its base, voting is a form of civic responsibility, which should be upheld by every citizen who can vote.
I definitely agree with you. Voting is one of the most basic ways that people can get a say in their government, and for some, it is the only way.
Sadly, that is all the time we have today, everyone. But both Fuzel and I hope that you have enjoyed this mini series, and we hope to get to tune in next time.
Thank you. Have a good night. Night.